So I'll pull this out of a container of what characters that I'm going to draw next. So it came up as Nezuko from Demon Slayer. And the second one is a prompt theme that I'm going to create with Nezuko, since that was random. And the second random prompt theme came out as fine art. So I'm going to combine Nezuko from Demon Slayer with fine art. So without further ado, let's get it started. Starting off with Adobe Photoshop of drawing Nezuko from Demon Slayer. If you haven't seen the show, I highly recommend you watch it either on Crunchyroll or on Netflix. I wish they sponsored me, but it is what it is. These are the references that I was looking at. At first I was going to illustrate her in the front view, having like a foreshortening by having the hand being closer to the viewer, have the hands big, showing the claws, and have her look as if she is laying on the ground. Unfortunately, I just didn't like the way it was coming out, so I decided to scrap that and move on to drawing a different composition. I am very picky when it comes on to composition, because if the composition / gesture doesn't work, then to me that's like the beads, right? The beams, I should say, the structure of what's holding down to the foundation. So if that falls apart, then I'm just not even going to bother moving forward with that particular illustration. So I decided to give it a profile view. I always said it, just like if you haven't seen a Yu Yu Hakusho illustration, I haven't drawn an anime style in a very long time. Last time I was like really into that was back in high school. Drawing Nezuko from a profile view, I just wanted to give it more of like the whimsical feel because she has long hair. She still has somewhat of a memory as the show moves forward. She has the memory of her brother, so she did not fully change like the rest of the demons that they go against in the show. So the dynamic between her and her brother is a very rather unique and emotional. For all those ladies out there who watch the show, I'm pretty sure you cried many times of their connection. So with the fine art style, I just wanted to give that elements that I actually looked at with the reference right there, right? Because that reference, whoever made that digital art of her in that composition with the color palette of that pale like rose color, but it's just a unique color, it's a unique design. So I was really looking at that the most compared to the other references. So I wanted to do something in my version of that. This is the fine art approach where it's really abstract. There's no real determination of what those are that's around her, but just wanted to convey that to strengthen the design and create that extra emotion. And speaking of emotion, I made her cry. I remember that scene in the beginning of Demon Slayer where, you know, the protagonist is struggling with her sister, and the sister is like fighting off as well as she's in tears. So I wanted to captivate a little bit of that by having her cry and showing that she's aware of the fact that she's a demon, but she's still there to protect her brother. Another thing too was to add flowers. So I added those quick designs of flowers, and later on I added the main character, and I did not look at reference of the main character at that point. That was an add-on similar to the Sonic illustration where I decided to add on Dr. Eggman. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. The only difference that with Eggman, I looked at references of Eggman, but with the main character of Demon Slayer, I was like, you know what, since he is in the background, I wanted to make it look more abstract, so I just did it myself out of my imagination. So once the sketch was complete, that's when I transferred the file from Adobe Photoshop to Adobe Illustrator. And oh, speaking of that, so transferring from, I'm gonna switch over here so you guys can see it. So I mainly just used the medium Wacom tablet. I had this for many years. This is the main tablet that I use right here, right? And this is what I use to draw on the computer. So once I finish drawing on the computer, this is when I transfer the files from Photoshop to Illustrator. So then I put that aside, and then I just use a gaming mouse. That's the gaming mouse that I use. When using Adobe Illustrator, this is when I utilize the pen tool. Now for this, for instance, this did not take too long. The most, I guess, time consuming area was the face of Nezuko, making sure I got that right. And the hair, since it's like based upon a lot of big shapes, because the hair has a lot of volume, it did not take as long as I thought. And then after that, I was just working on just the design elements that's happening around her, and then afterwards working on the main character. Honestly, it's a never learning experience, which is specifically is to draw somebody that's looking up, where it's showing the chin, the bottom chin area, just that area alone. That angle is quite difficult to captivate. I always say just look at references. So once the pen tool is complete, this is where I'm adding the colors. So now the coloring effect, I wanted to captivate Nezuko's skin tone, which is pale. So I have a lot of saved color swatches. I say that in every single video. Always save a library of color swatches. This is a good way of working smart, not always working hard. So I have so many different color libraries and color swatches that I've saved. So some of them, of course, I know I don't have her exact skin tone, but I found something around the ballpark. And then when you go to tints and shades on Adobe Illustrator, then you could just click on the tinter, more paler skin tone, and that's how I got her skin tone there. And then, you know, the eyes, that's what really got me, because honestly, when I was making this illustration after, like, you know, tracing over everything that I sketched using a pen tool, I was a bit skeptical. I was like, I don't know if this is gonna come out good. But once I started to add the colors of like Nezuko's eyes, the eyebrows, and the skin tone, that's when I'm like, okay, this is actually starting to come to life. And that's the thing about drawing. It always goes in, honestly, just like life, right? Life is a roller coaster. You go through ups, you go through downs. So I went through a down when I was drawing this because I wasn't confident in how it was gonna come out. But once the colors was applied, that's when it came to life. That's where I'm like, okay, I'm more confident and I'm more comfortable with moving forward with this illustration. Let me know if you guys experienced something like that in your life. Even if you're not an artist, just let me know if you went through a certain ups and downs that you had to overcome your adversity. Let me know in the comment section down below. So the coloring honestly didn't take too long. I actually was going back and forth with the gradient tool. I try to captivate the references that I was looking at. But yeah, so when I use the gradient tool, I was going back and forth with that. And afterwards, I was like, you know what? I'm okay with keeping it simple. And then I just use the same gradient tool with the rest of the graphic designs happening, the elements of it happening around her. And then I kept it really simple with the flowers as well. Speaking of flowers, her earring, I was actually happy with the way that came out, just because it's like detailed, but not too detailed. But they have a duality between that and the simplicity of the background flowers that I created around her. Speaking of simplicity, when it came down to coloring the main character, I wanted to keep that simple so you could look more at Nezuko rather than her brother. So once the colors was complete, this is when I transfer the files to Adobe Premiere. And with Adobe Premiere, this is when I add the elements of the background, doing color grading to create that movie-like scenery, and adding lightning. And that's the complete illustration of Nezuko in fine art, from the sketch to Adobe Illustrator, and then the final piece, which is the combination of those with Adobe Premiere. Let me know what you guys think down below. Also, if you guys have suggestions of characters that you guys want me to design, let me know. Throw your suggestions down below. That's it for the video. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.